Tomorrow, President Trump will begin his first major foreign trip, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. It's a return to the same region he toured on his first international visit in his first term. He's arriving in the Middle East where an emboldened Israel now threatens to occupy all of Gaza while continuing to strike Yemen and Lebanon. I'm joined by Ámos Hokshtain, who is a senior advisor and Middle East envoy in the Biden administration and is now a managing partner at TWG Global, and Kim Gaddis, a longtime foreign correspondent who is a contributing editor for the Financial Times. Kim, what is the significance of Trump deciding again to go to Saudi Arabia and to go to Qatar and the UAE?
Fareed, great to be with you. I think President Trump feels comfortable in a region like the Gulf, in a country like Saudi Arabia. They speak the same language, the language of business, and it's friendly terrain for him. And he'll find, however, that the region has changed a lot since he was last there in 2017, that Saudi Arabia itself has matured in its foreign policy, that the Crown Prince has matured, and that they really want to position themselves as equal partners or partners of the US with a lot to offer. And I think, as I said, they speak the same language. There'll be lots of discussions about big business deals, trillions of dollars, Saudi Arabia's untapped mineral wealth, and of course also, ostentatious celebrations, etc. Similarly in the UAE and in Qatar, which of course was not on Trump's itinerary last time because the relationship between other Gulf countries and Qatar was not that good. And we saw how that unfolded with the embargo. So Saudi Arabia positioning itself and the UAE as well as partners for the United States in a region that is in flux, where Iran has never been weaker and Israel has never been stronger. And I think the contrast that the Saudis will want to draw is with Israel, that is being seen increasingly in the White House as a net taker. The relationship between the US and Israel isn't going to change. It's historical, it's there, it's solid.
Kim, let me just interrupt you and make sure I get Ámos in on this, because Ámos, what Kim is pointing to is really a dramatic change from Trump 1, which is the maturation of Saudi Arabia into a major force and a major force for stability. I mean, gone is the Yemen war, the blockade of Qatar, the business in Lebanon. Now, Mohammed bin Salman, the ruler of Saudi Arabia, the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia, is a force for stability. He's even been counseling some restraint on the Yemen war, on America strikes. He's suggested he's open to some kind of deal with Iran. You were working on precisely these issues. Is this the key shift that's taken place? Saudi Arabia that is now a kind of provider of security?
Well, Fareed, thank you for having me. It's good to be here. Look, I think that I agree with Kim. A major shift has happened in the Middle East since, in the Gulf particularly, since Donald Trump as president went there in his beginning of his first term. And what we saw is a shift from not just as Saudi Arabia maturing both economically and politically, but the whole region shifting away on very important policies. They did not like the JCPOA, the agreement that was reached between the United States and Iran during the Obama administration on its nuclear program, and were more on the Israeli position on that. Today, and for the last several years, they are more in line with supporting a new deal that can be reached because they look at stability. Gone are the days of conflict, and now the days are, how do we create political stability that supports economic activity? The projection of power is not military, but rather sophistication in advancing their investments in AI and data centers and technology and compute and advancing their countries. Most importantly, how do we move our economies from dependent on oil to such a large degree to having a diversified economy that is investing in a future that is not dependent on fossil fuels. And to that, you have to make major investments. To do that, you must have a relationship a strong relationship with the United States, because despite all our troubles, we are the greatest economy in the world, and we have the most advantaged technology, innovation ecosystem that they can invest into. So they see the United States relationship now as, how do we make sure that we do business together, that we invest together, and to do that, we make sure that the region is stable. War in Iran is not part of that equation. War in Gaza is a distraction from that agenda. So I think that the president will find a very different Middle East. I think the trip is a very important one, because it's not only that there are interests for Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar. There are also very big issues of interest of the United States in the region and globally. Our economic war that we are in with China, and it's a war, we need to have allies, and the Middle East plays a big part in the U.S.-China relationship. And we discovered that in the Biden administration and worked on that, and I think President Trump is seeing that now, and for sure we'll hear a lot about that this week.
Ámos, what is the state of the relationship between Trump and Bibi Netanyahu? There seem to be tensions, and I noticed something that the U.S. deal the ceasefire or whatever pause it negotiated with the Houthis in Yemen, whether or not it holds, does not include Israel. So the Houthis and the Israelis continue to fight, which is unusual. As I recall, the one you guys negotiated in the Biden years covered Israel. What is going on, you think?
I want to be careful, because I lived through 4 years of learning from the media all kinds of tensions between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Look, it's always a bit difficult, because our interests of the United States is to support Israel's right to defend itself and to support it overall. But sometimes there are differences of opinion and difference of interest. On the Yemen thing, look, it was strange to me. I would have thought the United States would want to make sure that any ceasefire with the Houthis includes a cessation of hostilities between them and Israel directly. So have a situation where we can't respond and attack the Houthis if they hit major strategic assets in Israel. That's something that I think needs more explanation. I think overall, Israel wants to continue the war in Gaza at the moment. I think the Trump administration would like to see a conclusion. I think the Trump administration would like to see if there's space for a deal with Iran. I think Israel clearly does not want to see that. So there are fundamental differences between the two countries, and they have to figure out how to get to the other side of that and how to make sure that they can work together. I think this trip, though, is about the U.S. bilateral relationship with Qatar, Saudi, and the UAE. It is not about Israel.
Kim, you're in Lebanon. The Israelis are using this moment where they are much more powerful. Iran is weakened. The proxies like Hezbollah weakened. They're hitting hard in Lebanon against the Houthis. And, of course, they are now talking about occupying Gaza. What do you think that is doing?
Well, Ámos negotiated the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel, and Lebanon's trying its best to assert its sovereignty across the country and deploy the Lebanese army. Israel continues to breach the ceasefire, targeting southern Lebanon. Lebanon complains about it. Not much is done about it. I'm sure there are breaches on the Lebanese side as well. But it is very concerning to see that Israel is implementing a policy or deploying a policy that only aggravates the problem that it's trying to resolve, which is dealing with groups like Hezbollah or Hamas. The more you continue using military force, the more you feed fodder to these kinds of groups. And I think that that's where Trump would like Benjamin Netanyahu to, in essence, get with the program. I think the relationship, the alliance between the two countries remains strong, but they're not speaking the same language at the moment. As Ámos pointed out, Trump wants stability, business deals. Perhaps normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel is not on the table, but Benjamin Netanyahu's insistence on continuing with military strikes in Syria in Lebanon and continuing the military assault on Gaza does not fit with Trump's vision for the region. Neither does it ensure Israel's long-term safety and security. It certainly doesn't bring back the Israeli hostages, and let's not speak about the devastation that it has visited on the Palestinians.
Ámos, we don't have a lot of time, but I do want to ask you briefly, what is going on in Gaza, I take it that means, and it seems to me both sides, Israel and Saudi Arabia seem to realize normalization is not going to happen, because the Saudis have said there has to be progress, real progress on a Palestinian state. Israel is right now essentially occupying Gaza and is also taking over large parts of the West Bank. So is that completely off the table for now?
It seems like it has to be. Look, Israel has had remarkable success militarily. It is failing at translating military gains into diplomatic gains. And I think Israel has a historic moment here to get a better relationship with Lebanon long term, a better relationship with Syria long term, and normalization with Saudi Arabia. That I cannot think of something that is more strategically important to Israel's national security and for regional security. And with all that, all they have to do is end the war in Gaza and start a pathway towards some kind of Palestinian state negotiations. And to get there is relatively simple. And it seems for political or other reasons that Israel is not willing to take that step. I think that President Trump is actually right that is the vision of the region. And I think it's also right for Israel.